Let the record show, I totally agree with Robert De Niro. I am one of those people that suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. I think he is a threat to democracy.
Really?
I think that he led an attempted coup in this country. You know, he said he wanted to suspend the Constitution to overthrow the results of an election. At the least, that's just not a patriotic thing to say.
I don't believe that.
He absolutely said that on Truth Social.
I will look that up.
He did.
He wanted to suspend the Constitution.
He said we should suspend the Constitution to overthrow the results of an election. He said it on Truth Social, then said he didn't say it. So I read Project 25. I'm one of those guys that's like, I don't know if he will necessarily leave.
Yeah, I think those are very, very understandable concerns to have. And he not only said he has these concerns, he cited evidence for these concerns. And I'm sure you, like me, were just waiting for Gutfeld to look it up. Oh, that's gonna be a game changer. Actually, I'll save him some time because I know he's not gonna do that. Charlemagne appears to be referencing this tweet that Donald Trump had sent out. So with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception in the blah, 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 blah. A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders, which he put in quotation marks, so I guess he doubts that they were the founders. Seems unpatriotic. Did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections. So he said, termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. That was super clear. That was actually after the 2022 midterm elections that he said that. It was less than 2 years ago that he said, no, just all, if they steal the election, which I'm gonna determine based on whether I lost or not, the rules don't count, the laws don't count, the articles don't count, even the Constitution. Now I know that if Greg Gutfeld actually sees that, it's not gonna have any effect on anything because Greg Gutfeld is not a thinking human. He is not coming to all of this with anything within a country mile of an open mind. He doesn't care, he's perfectly happy with the Constitution being suspended. He just wants to, sit in the stands and make jokes about it or whatever. But I think that Charlemagne has very real fears. I know he had a really rough reception by the ladies of The View for not being sufficiently supportive of Joe Biden or whatever. Hey, I'm glad you're here. Listen, in order for the Damage Report to keep on going, we need viewers like you to become a member on YouTube. Can you click the join button on YouTube today? Thank you. But don't let that make you think that he's like a fan of Trump. He's incredibly clear. He liked the De Niro appearance that most people I think are pretty critical of. And so I think it was a great appearance. I don't know if it's gonna get through to any of Greg Gutfeld's audience, Sharon, but what do you think?
Well, he was booked by accident. Even the bookers on Fox News underestimate a black man. They figured because he does not like Joe Biden, that we can have him on. And they didn't even dig deeper into the complexities that he's raised, the truth that he's spoken, as you said, the examples that Charlemagne cited. So I think it was like a surprise attack. I don't know when they'll have him back or they'll be ready to cut his mic. And I don't know that it'll get through to some of the Fox people. I think some of their audience probably wrote in or got on Truth Social and said, why do you have this guy on, okay? And Greg Gutfeld, it was in the news cycle for all of 15 minutes, which is an eternity. Of course, Trump said he wanted to suspend the Constitution. I mean, that's what he said. So I don't know what they're always forgetting. They're always forgetting these landmark things that their dear leader does.
Yeah, but again, you could print it out, you could shove it in their face. They're not going to care. Remember, that was not the only piece of evidence that Charlemagne brought up. He tried to overthrow the results of the election. He did with a legal scheme, with aid of the senators, and with a violent mob. He tried to do that. It is frustrating when there is evidence that something could happen, and you warn people about it, and they don't pay attention or they don't care. That is frustrating. But that's got nothing on when the thing already happened and nobody cares. You can point to that thing that happened when he did that thing and nobody cares. That is very frustrating. And look, he's being very clear about what he wants to do in the future. Again, I'm gonna be a dictator for one day, which he has said now repeatedly. Sean Hannity tried to give him an out. He didn't take it. He loves the idea of being a dictator. He loves dictators in general. 74% of Republicans say that he should be a dictator at least for a day. So why wouldn't he? There's no downside to doing it. And he's got people like Steve Bannon that are saying, again, referencing the Project 2025 that again, Charlemagne mentioned. Yeah, look, I agree. maybe they underestimated him. It's possible they'd want him anyway, just because he's famous, he draws a lot of attention. But yeah, they probably saw him on The View and they were like, this guy's critical of Biden. I had a similar sort of thing happen on a much lower scale, where I was very critical, obviously, of Hillary Clinton during the 2016 primary. And Tomi Lahren brought me onto her show to talk about that. And I criticized Hillary Clinton. And then I tore Trump apart, because there's this weird thing where you're only supposed to dislike or criticize one side. And I get why she was blindsided by that, because it's a thing where especially people who used to be leftists and are critical rightly of the Democrats decide that, well, now if I muddy the waters by criticizing the Republicans, it's not a pure brand. I'm not interested in that stuff. And so Charlemagne's not interested in that stuff. He's a thinking human being who can have complex, nuanced thoughts about things, multiple things that don't all have to point in the same direction. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.